You can sit in.
All right, I am showing 6 o'clock, so let's go ahead and call the meeting of the Rock County Board of Supervisors to order. It is Thursday, July 9th at 6 p.m. And we will begin here in just a moment with the invocation. However, I just want to remind everyone, if you are not speaking, to keep your mic on mute. And I believe Supervisor Zajac, I saw you pop in. So if you will please lead us in the invocation and Pledge of Allegiance, and if I could ask everyone to please stand.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is the month we honor the birth of becoming an independent nation. And since 1776, each of the past 244 years, and by design, America and Americans have evolved and adapted to create our most strongest union featuring our most patriotic citizens. That challenge of ultimate unity continues to press on to this day. And common good and common decency needs to continue to be embraced. And I believe one of the most patriotic acts we can do as an American is look inward and reflect on our own privileges and biases and continue to reshape and educate America to enhance our biggest ideal, that all people are created equal. It really is as simple as Martin Luther King said, the time is always right to do the right thing. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic in which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Supervisor Zajac. Next item on the agenda, please.
Next item is roll call. Agutter? Beaver?
Present.
Baumkamp? Bostwick? Pam? Bostwick, Rich?
Here.
Brian?
Here.
Davis?
Here.
Castina?
Here.
Holman?
Here.
Knutson?
Here.
Levy?
Here.
Lockrantz?
Here.
Mawhinney?
Here.
Mulligan? Peer?
Present.
Podzilny?
Here.
Potter? Raskin?
Here.
Richard?
Here.
Renish?
Here.
Stoll?
Here.
Sweeney?
Here.
Taylor?
Here.
Wildy?
Here.
Williams?
Present.
Yeomans? Zajac? I know he just,
Here.
thank you. Purviance?
Here.
I noticed that Agutter is here.
Here.
I'm double. Thank you.
Hey, Lisa,
Yes.
I'm here too.
Okay. Thank you. So I'm not seeing Baumkamp, Pam, Bostwick, Mulligan, Potter, or Yeomans. So 24 present, 5 absent.
All right, we do have a quorum. Next item, please.
Next item is adoption of agenda.
All right.
Davis moves.
Moved by Davis, seconded by Bostwick. We do have one small change. We did add in item 8C, which is the appointment to the Board of Adjustment. That was updated on the website, but just so everyone has the updated version that was added on after last week. But I believe that should be it for the changes. And so all those in favor of the agenda as amended, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed with no? All right, agenda is approved. Next item, please.
Next item, item 5, approval of minutes from June 25th, 2020.
Moved by Supervisor Peer.
Seconded by Mawini.
All right, so we have a motion by Supervisor Peer and a second by Supervisor Mawini. Are there any corrections to the minutes? All right, hearing none, all those in favor of approval of the minutes as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed with no? All right, minutes are approved. Next item, please.
Next item is item 6, public hearing. We do not have a public hearing this evening. Item 7, citizen participation, communications and announcements. And we do have 2 individuals who wish to speak tonight. So I'm going to, the first person is Maggie Bromley. And Maggie, I just, if you can unmute your.
Oh, here we go. How's that?
Are you speaking now, Maggie?
I'm sorry?
You can
I'm
go
ready.
ahead, Maggie.
Oh,
Yep.
okay,
You can
okay,
speak for about 2 minutes.
okay. I would like to speak in support of the carbon fee and dividend resolution that's going to be, I believe, going to be before you this evening. As the human race is rightfully preoccupied with the coronavirus pandemic, the clock continues to tick on our time to address our most significant existential threat, that of climate change. I ask you to approve the resolution in support of federal carbon fee and dividend legislation. The carbon fee and dividend approach is considered by many climatologists and economists to be the most promising response to climate change. It gives energy producers strong incentives to find less polluting alternatives to carbon and mitigates the costs of these alternatives to consumers. You may ask why a local governing group such as the Rock County Board of Supervisors should get involved in advocating for this federal legislation. The consequences of failing to act on climate change are so significant that they call on each and every one of us to act. Life as we know it will begin to change significantly in a matter of about a decade unless we address the issues of climate change. No one can afford to sit back and leave the problem solving and advocacy to others. As members of a local governing body, you have more power than most to influence our legislators. County board endorsement will help to build support for carbon fee and dividend legislation. Please use your influence for the good of making life on Earth safe for our children and grandchildren. Thank you.
Thank you, Maggie. Our second speaker is Katie Grogan. And just a second, Katie, I need to find you on our screen again. So Katie, you can go ahead and speak for approximately 2 minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chairman, members of the board, my name is Katie Grogan. I am the Janesville leader of Citizens Climate Lobby. We are a nonpartisan organization. Our sole focus is building the political will for climate action. And I'm here today in support of the proposed climate resolution. This resolution simply urges Congress to do what economists say is the best way to quickly and effectively reduce carbon emissions. to set a rising fee on carbon to reflect its true cost, to return that as a dividend to citizens. A carbon fee raises the cost of fossil fuels, and that in turn spurs investment in renewable sources of energy and spurs innovation. Economists support these plans because in addition to being very effective in achieving carbon reductions, they grow jobs. And they do so without expanding government and without adding to the deficit. They are in fact market-oriented solutions. Here in Wisconsin, we've had just a taste of what's to come if global temperatures continue to rise. Costly damage to our infrastructure, delayed planting and harvesting, flooded homes and fields, which might be happening as I speak, high temperatures that affect our tourism industry, as well as our livestock, our crops, our fisheries. We're running out of time. Another global crisis looms. The 2019 Yale Climate Opinion Project estimates that 70% of Rock County citizens support a fee on carbon. On behalf of the citizens of Rock County, I strongly urge you to join the many cities and counties in Wisconsin and all across the country who have already endorsed this effective climate solution. Thank you.
Thank you. So I do have, I had public comments submitted by Brittany Keys. Brittany, I didn't check whether you wanted to speak or not. Would you like to speak?
I would, if that's okay, please.
Yep, go ahead.
Thank you and good evening. I appreciate this opportunity to weigh in on the importance and urgency of climate action at this local level. My name is Dr. Brittany Keys, a physical therapist and athletic trainer, coach, and mom from Beloit, Wisconsin. Even though I have the honor of serving as a board member of the Wisconsin Health Professionals for Climate Action, I'm speaking today as a concerned health provider and concerned parent, and in support of immediate and aggressive climate action, and in support of the resolution to for carbon fee and dividend. I'm really sorry. So throughout my lifetime, despite a continued call to action from the scientific community, we as a society have actively and repeatedly added on environmental assaults. And we're currently living and breathing the acceleration of our current climate crisis reality. Burning fossil fuels pollutes the air we breathe, causing heart attacks, asthma, cancer, stillbirths, and premature births, killing tens of thousands of Americans each year. In Wisconsin alone, a switch to 100% clean energy is estimated to save 1,000 lives and $21.1 billion each year. So transitioning towards a clean energy economy and providing support and encouraging a clean energy economy will make us healthier and save us money immediately. I truly appreciate that leading during this time is extremely challenging. We're living in a trifecta of public health crises with COVID-19, racism, and climate change. Each of these intersect and result in negative health outcomes, impacting already marginalized communities the greatest. COVID-19 has shown us that science gives us windows of opportunity to act before the problems get out of hand, and that missed windows of opportunities cost us lives. If we fail to use our shrinking window of opportunity to slow climate change, Wisconsinites will see multiplying health threats of worsening air pollution, new and more serious infectious diseases, increased issues from flooding, and more. So I ask The passing of this resolution is critical in sending a message to our state and federal leaders that our local elected officials believe that we all need to put partisan politics aside and appreciate the urgency of climate change, and that the future and current health of our communities must be our constant priority. Thank you again for your time, attention, and consideration.
Thank you. So we had several others that just wrote in, they didn't wish to speak. So we're going to do the normal where we would read it for about 2 minutes worth. Most of these are fairly short. First one is from Aaron Dabson. Yes, another bold, kind, and insightful email from one of your favorite Rock County citizens. As a citizen of this county, I absolutely do not support closing or further restricting bars, restaurants, etc. As of lately, the government seems to do whatever it personally wants to do because it seems that you forget that you work for us. We, the citizens, do not work for you. More testing equals more cases. Death rate is dropping, and our hospitals aren't at risk of becoming overwhelmed. Prove me wrong. So the only thing I can think of as a reason to close things down again is to infringe on our rights and inflict as much financial disaster upon the people you're supposed to be serving. All because we have an election coming up and you want people to vote Democrat. And in the event you close down restaurants, you well better immediately close down any BLM protests that pop up throughout the county. If they have a right to assemble to block roadways and preach their views in front of the courthouse, then I have a right to assemble at a restaurant, bar, or strip club. Regardless of 100% against closures of any business, this isn't North Korea or Nazi Germany. Business should be allowed to make their own decisions regarding staying home open, and likewise, citizens in a free country should be allowed to decide whether they want to patronize a business or choose to stay open. The next one is from Gregory Trucco. I'm asking for your support for the climate resolution under consideration. While climate change is best addressed at the national level, resolutions like this one communicate to our national leadership that climate legislation is necessary and has local support. This resolution supports a national fee on carbon use, and it includes a trust fund that ensures that the proceeds are returned to everyone, adults and kids, and 100% rebate is necessary to keep the fee from being a burden, and it helps ensure popular support. This policy has been recommended. Many experts, economists, including 27 Nobel Peace economists, 15 former chairs of the Council of Economic Advisors, and all 4 living former chairs of the Federal Reserve. They believe this is the cheapest way to reduce carbon dioxide emissions in the long run. The rebate is key because we know from other countries that a near 100% rebate is essential to keep public support. Now let's turn our attention to the warming climate in southern Wisconsin. 30 years from now, the average temperature will be 6 to 7 degrees above the historical baseline, according to the DNR UW-Madison. Additionally, summer heat will reduce corn and soybean yields by as much as 40 to 50%. Brook trout, which need cool water, are predicted to decline by 95%. Conversely, white-tailed deer, European starling, and Canadian geese will surge in number, become local nuisances, and take over habitats of other animals. This means if nothing is done, there will be serious damage to wildlife if nothing is done. For these reasons, please pass this resolution to communicate to policymakers how important climate change is to Rock County. The next one is from Alfred and Karen Bernard. Alfred and I wish to state that we are against the move to institute a carbon tax in Rock County. We have not seen any discussion of this in the paper, nor have we heard anything on WCLO. At this time, we are definitely not in favor of it. The next one is from Barbara Fett. My name is Barbara Fett. I live at 548 Bostwick Avenue, Janesville. I want to address climate change. The COVID-19 pandemic notwithstanding, I think climate change may be the one thing we humans might have a chance to beat. The clock is ticking, and if scientists are accurate, we have very little time left. Human activities have polluted our air and water. The Earth is heating up and is now warmer than it has been for thousands of years. Animal species are going extinct and crops are failing. By the year 2050, suitable croplands for 4 top commodities, corn, potatoes, rice, and wheat, will shift, in some cases pushing farmers to plant new crops. I'm imagining that doing nothing could eventually mean the end of human life on our planet. There will be life, but just not human life. I joined the local branch of the Citizens Climate Change Lobby, and we are advocating federal carbon fee and dividend legislation, but Congress is unable to move forward as politicians are controlled by their donors' priorities, which is usually to make a profit at any cost. The work of saving our planet has been left to the hands of local governing bodies. I believe if all cities, towns, and villages of America join together in support of this critical legislation, there shall be a successful movement toward climate change solutions. Somehow we need to prod Congress to make action. Nobody says this will be easy. It will not. There are sacrifices, and it will be hard. We have no choice. We must save the world before it's too late. We can unite with the world. We can do this. For many of us, it is also a sacred duty. The resolution before you on Thursday adds Janesville to a long list of communities that are urging the U.S. Congress to pass effective legislation to address climate change without delay. Please pass this. Next one is from Jenny Hopi from Beloit. I'd like to voice my support for adopting a common sense action plan at the county level to take immediate action in the fight to reverse climate change. We can make a difference, and we must. As local farmers, my husband and I already see the negative effects of global climate change taking effect. Last spring, all of our cherry trees died in full bloom because of the late frost and ice storm caused by the erratic weather swings of climate change. And this is just the beginning. I would like to mention also the flooding seen across the state in the last 2 years. The changes are happening now and are nothing compared to what is coming. Please do what you can. The next one is from Megan Miller from Beloit. Thank you for taking my comments. I am writing to urge you to support the climate resolution for carbon-free and dividend legislation. As a mother of 3, it is critically important to me that our local government takes the climate crisis seriously. The abounding health and environmental issues are going to be more devastating and costly the longer we wait to address them. Taking action now is not only an investment in future financial savings, it is an investment in public health, agriculture, and our children's well-being. I'm a firm believer that we can make positive changes community by community. It would make me proud to see Rock County be a leader guiding other counties and municipalities into action. Thank you for taking the time to consider my thoughts. I look forward to seeing the proactive and responsible action that you can take. The next one is from Mary Seberg, also from Beloit. Proposal scheduled for carbon-free and dividend resolution. The carbon-free and dividend resolution is a good start to affect climate change. We not only have to do this for ourselves, but think of future generations. What you do now affects many generations to come. It has helped in countries like Canada and Switzerland. But here in Rock County, you can go even further than this proposal. Rock County can offer incentives for homeowners to further reduce their need for oil, gas, etc., electric cars, solar, and wind energy. Wouldn't it sound nice to have Rock County be the model for other countries to go green? Thank you. I appreciate the opportunities to share my views. The next one is from Aaron Davis, also from Janesville. Good evening. I would like to strongly urge the Rock County Board to vote yes on the climate resolution, which supports the federal carbon-free and dividend legislation. By passing the climate resolution, Rock County will join those that strive to make the world better for generations to come and to encourage the use of cleaner energy sources. Please vote yes. And Aaron Davis actually submitted 2 comments. They're very similar. Next one is from Eugene Bear. Carbon-free and dividend legislation. I feel that as a community, we need to take our first steps in solving the crisis presented by climate change. A good first step, then, may be to endorse the carbon-free and dividend legislation contained in House Bill 763. The goal of the legislation is to point us away from carbon fuels and encourage alternate energy sources. While any legislation is easy to dismiss, we cannot ignore the crisis, and this bill gets the conversation started. It will cause us to look at the local issues and will hopefully give us ideas that can fleshed into positive action. Setting this discussion aside would be easy, but a lack of progress toward a climate solution wastes critical time. Approving this legislation support will get the ball rolling. Thank you for the opportunity to present my thoughts to the board. Last one is from James Foss, Janesville. I write in support of items 12C on the agenda entitled "In Support of Effective Federal Carbon-Free and Dividend Legislation to Mitigate the Climate Crisis." Officials around the world have told us that we only have a few years left to reverse the damage being done to the planet before its effects are irreversible. As a 28-year-old, my generation and all generations after me are the ones who will have to pay the price to the foolishness and reckless ways of living on this earth. Some of them may have to pay with their lives due to drought, heat, flooding, or unusually strong natural disasters like hurricanes. We need to be doing everything we can to slow this progress down. Even if we can't stop it completely, our children deserve better. Vote yes on this item. Our planet and our children are counting on you. That's the last of the public comment that was submitted.
Thank you, Lisa. So the next item here would be communications from supervisors. Before I open the floor up to any supervisor that's willing or is wanting to share any communications this evening, just a couple of quick announcements. First, we have a couple of birthdays coming up before our next meeting. So happy birthday to Supervisor Agutter, Knudsen, Peer, and Levy. Hope you all enjoy your days and get to do something fun for your birthday. And as well, just another quick item. Generally, we do not have a second meeting in July. As of right now, we don't have any business that would need to be at a second meeting in July, but I do urge you to just keep an eye on your emails and keep an eye out for agendas for that week, just to make sure we might have something that pops up here later in the month that we might need to discuss prior to our August meeting. So just keep an eye out for that. And then so at this time, if any other supervisor is wishing to share any announcements or communications, I will open the floor.
Les Davis.
Yes, go ahead, Supervisor Davis.
I'd like to offer my condolences to Rich Bostwick on the loss of his sister this week. I don't know that all of you know that, but he's a good guy, and I hate to see him lose a valuable member of the family.
Thank you, Supervisor Davis. And yes, we want to echo what Supervisor Davis said, and our thoughts and prayers are definitely with you at this time, Supervisor Bostwick. Any other supervisors wishing to speak at this time? Supervisor Schultz?
Yes, I just want to mention, I have heard that Terry Fell is in the hospital, and I don't know if we could send a card out or something. I just think we should take a moment maybe to thank him for all that he's done.
Thank you, Supervisor Schultz. We'll see if we can pass something along to Supervisor Fell. Thank you. Any other supervisors? All right, any announcements from staff? Josh, I believe you had something, right?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Wanted to let everyone know that this year's capital improvement plan is now out on the website. This is the 2021-2025 capital improvement plan. So you can find this if you go out to the county's website and click on departments and administration. You'll see off to the side there's a link for the capital improvement plan. It'll be a PDF document. It's 72 pages long. As many of you know from prior years, every year we update the capital improvement plan with capital projects that may be coming in the next 5 years to let the board and the public be aware of projects that we might be considering over that time span. This year, Jody Serber from our office has put this together, and there's a new section on analysis. They'll give you some graphs and some trends there for you to look at as well. A reminder that this is not a capital budget. These are not guaranteed to be funded, just projects that may be coming. We've moved it to the spring after many years of having in the fall to differentiate it from the budget. So we won't have a report on it as we have in past years, but just know that it has been posted to the website. And if anybody has any questions about it, please feel free to follow up with me. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh. Any other staff announcements? All right, hearing none. Next item, please.
Next item is item 8, nominations, appointments, and confirmations. Item 8A, appointment to the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council, new appointments, Deputy Chief John Olson, Captain Thomas Stringer, Vicki Brown, and Ann Knack.
Move, Jeremy.
Thank you.
Second, Supervisor Williams.
Thank you. So we have a motion by Supervisor Zajac and a second by Supervisor Williams for the appointments. Any questions at all? All right, hearing none. All those in favor of the appointments as presented in the agenda, please say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Aye.
No. All right, next item, please.
Next item, item 8B, appointment to the Land Information Council, new appointments, Register of Deeds Sandy Disrud, Surveyor Brad Hewer, and Chris Peel, 911 Communication Center.
Thank you.
Winnie moves.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Supervisor Mulligan will second.
All right, so we have a motion by Supervisor Mawhinney and a second by Supervisor Mulligan to approve the appointments to the Land Information Council. Are there any questions at all? All right, hearing none. All those in favor of the appointments as presented, please say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed with no? All right, appointments carried. Next item, please.
For those of you who are wondering, that is the weather alert for the building in my office. There's a severe thunderstorm warning, if you hadn't figured that out already. So the next item is item 8C, appointment to the Board of Adjustment, Jean-Paul Zajac.
All
Pierre
right.
moves.
Thank you, Supervisor Peer. Is there a second?
Davis seconds.
All right, we have a motion by Supervisor Peer and a second by Supervisor Davis to make the appointment. Any questions at all? All right, hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed with no? All right, motion carries. Next item, please.
Next item, item 9, recognition of county employees or others. We do not have any this evening. Item 10, introduction of new resolutions or ordinances by supervisors for referral to appropriate committee. I did not receive any ahead of the meeting.
Okay, and I do believe that there may be one. Supervisor Taylor, do you have something to present at this time?
I do. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm introducing an ordinance change alongside Supervisor Bieber. This adds to our ordinance a specific section on possession of THC and cannabis paraphernalia, and it sets the penalty for violation to a forfeiture of $1. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Taylor. We will see that that gets to the appropriate committee. Next item, please.
Next item is 11 reports. 11A, U.S. Census and Rock County participation.
Thank you. I will turn it over to Randy Taronis to introduce our guest speaker for this evening.
Thank you. Every 10 years, the county, the country is required to update our population statistics. And one of the primary reasons is that the distribution of federal money, as well as other types of distribution at the federal and or state level, depends on what the official population is through the U.S. Census. And so this year we're in the midst of that, And Mr. Jerry Huffman, who is our regional contact through the U.S. Census, wants to give us some brief comments on where we stand on the U.S. Census participation. Jerry?
Thanks, Randy. And on a personal side, if I could digress for just a moment, I'm really happy to be here because I'm a Beloit boy. So I grew up in the area. I still play golf at Riverside and Kruger. And Rock County has been a part of my life for almost all of my life. And to be working with the folks again, it makes me really happy. And especially when Wes tonight reminded me that he was my high school English teacher. So it kind of feels nice about coming home. Biggest difference in the census as compared to last year's, it is online, which means you can go online, fill out your form. There is 8 questions. Most people have no trouble finishing it in about 10 minutes, and it's faster, it's more efficient, it cuts down on errors. It has really been a pretty successful experiment so far. The good news, well, first, some of the numbers. The United States is averaging 62% right now in terms of people that have filled out their census forms, and that puts us well ahead of what we did when we did it in paper 10 years ago. Wisconsin is number 2 in the nation at 68.9%. 10 years ago, Wisconsin was number 1, so we still have our work cut out for us. Number 1 state in the nation right now is Minnesota. They are at 71.5%. And it's worth pointing out that the Minnesota legislature gave their communities $2 million for a budget to work on the census. And we pretty much received best wishes from the Wisconsin legislature. And we started 2 years later. So it's been an uphill climb, but even with my bad math here, there's about a 1.5 difference for $2 million. So we are holding our own. Rock County is doing especially well. They are at 73.6% right now. That's competitive with any county in the state. Compare it to Dane County, they're just barely ahead at 74.7%. My job, pardon me, my job specifically was to go into the communities of Rock County and 4 other counties across Wisconsin and convince the local folks to work with us. Because as Randy said, one of the most important things about the census is your population and how that impacts federal funding. For each person that gets counted, that's about another $1,500 that comes in federal funding for the county. Doesn't matter if it's an infant or somebody's grandpa, $1,500 per person. So it really adds a lot very quickly. For each person, the county's population, the community and the county's population were to drop as compared to 10 years ago, it's going to cost about $1,200. So, I mean, your money can really go up or it can come down based solely on how you do. And that's why we're working so hard right now to let people know it's online, it's easy, it's quick. You can go to the library if you don't have a computer. It truly matters. And if you go, I don't want to bother, that's saying to Washington, you know what, take my tax dollars and give it to South Beloit, give it to Rockford, give it to whoever. We don't want it. And I don't think anyone wants to have that happen. We have 6 communities we're working with in Rock County. Right now, number 1 city is Milton at 79.4%. Edgerton is at 78.6. Those are phenomenal numbers. They really are. The standard that me and all of my other colleagues are expected to meet right now is 50%. So both Milton and Edgerton are scratching on 80% to be number 1. Some of the others, Beloit is at 66.4, Janesville is at 75.7, Footville is at 62%, and Orfordville is at 74.3. My main message, we're doing well, we got to do better. You have to remind people, if you haven't filled out your census yet, please get it filled out because it is extremely important. That's it, Madam Chair. Short and sweet, just giving you the numbers. We're doing great.
All right, thank you,
If
Mr. Huffman.
If there's any questions, I'm happy to entertain.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Huffman regarding the census?
Jerry, do you want to mention that, that the field people are still going to start to go out or have started to go out to knock on the doors for those who haven't answered the census yet?
Yeah, thank you, Randy. That slipped my mind for a moment. I tried to find out a specific number, but somewhere in early August, we're going to be sending out door knockers, as we call them. For the people who haven't answered, somebody's going to show up and knock on your door and ask you to fill out your census. That's going to start in early August, depending upon what the final number is. And Randy, this is just a ballpark guess. Let's say anywhere from a dozen to 20 people over some days, knocking on every door in the county, trying to fill it in.
Any other questions at all?
One,
Yes, go ahead, Supervisor Schultz.
for people that may be a little shy about filling out on computers, is there someplace they can pick up a paper copy? Is there a way that there's some self-addressed envelope where they can send it?
Eventually, we're going to send you a paper copy. We're trying to avoid that because it's more expensive. Human error gets factored in then, because when that paper copy comes back to wherever, somebody's got to open it, look at it, and you hope they transcribe your answers accurately. My advice, if you're shy about computers or you're not comfortable with computers, I've been doing this for 15 months now. No single library I have talked to has said they would not help people. So if you can get to the library, or if you've got a 10-year-old handy, you just call up the website, 2020census.gov. You put in your name, and I can't say this enough. It's dead easy. It really is. And it's literally just 8 questions.
Well, I'm thinking of people that don't have a computer and are not real familiar with the library system. You know, somehow they need to be counted.
Door knockers. They're going to
Okay.
show up in the month of August. From a security standpoint, they're going to be wearing shirts with census across the chest. They're going to have I don't have mine handy, they'll have a federal ID card with their photo on it. They'll probably be carrying a backpack of sorts that says US Census on it. So if somebody shows up at your door looking like a census salesman, they are. You like that, Wes?
Yeah, I do.
There you go.
I'm glad you still have a sense of humor.
Hey, I got through Memorial. What can I say?
Any other questions?
Randy has my contact information. If you think of anything, I'll talk to 2 people at a time. I've talked to huge groups at a time. If there's a card club, a whatever, I did a Milton bingo game, which was a highlight of my career. You know, I'll come talk to your group, and we can get some people who can help you too. But honestly, if you're concerned about it, somebody's going to show up at your door, or the paper census will turn up. But thank you for this opportunity. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you, Mr. Huffman. Thank you. All right. Next item, please.
Next item is 12, new business. 12A, supplementary appropriations and budget changes. 12A1, amending the 2020 Human Services Department budget to accept a substance abuse block grant supplemental award.
Moved by Knutson.
All right, moved
by Pam Bostwick.
Okay, moved by Knutson, seconded by Supervisor Bostwick. Supervisor Knutson, do you want to just give us an overview of this item?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Wisconsin Department of Health Services offered additional funding of $154,700 in the form of a substance abuse block grant award. This resolution seeks approval from this board to accept the funds. There are specific requirements about how this funding is used. In general, it's to support substance abuse treatment and prevention activities. The funding is also being used to support additional peer support, recovery coaches, residential treatment, and prevention activities. We would appreciate your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Knutson. Any supervisors with questions or comments? All right, hearing none and seeing no hands, this is roll call. Lisa, if you would, please.
Zajac,
Yes.
Potter, Knutson,
Yeah.
Mawhinney,
Yes.
Beaver,
Yes.
Lokrantz,
Yes.
Pullman,
Yes.
Rich Bostwick,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
Yeomans, Pier,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Levy,
Yes.
Christina,
Yes.
Baumkamp, Richard,
Yes.
Mulligan,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Fox,
Yes.
Rashkin,
Yes.
Podzolny, Sweeney,
Yes.
Wildy,
Yes.
Taylor,
That was the,
Yes.
Pam Bostwick,
Yes.
Agutter,
Yes.
Schultz,
Yes.
Grenish,
Yes.
Purviance.
Yes.
I'm gonna go back. Is Podzolny on?
Yes.
Thank you. 27 yes, 2 absent. Oh, I'm sorry. 26 yes, 3 absent.
Thank you. Motion passes. Next item, please.
Next item, item 12B, contracts. We do not have any contracts tonight. Item 12C, in support of effective federal carbon-free and dividend legislation to mitigate the climate crisis.
Thank you.
Move.
Moved by Supervisor Lowcrantz, seconded by Supervisor Renish. Supervisor Lowcrantz?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I won't read, read the whole resolution over again, but I think the resolution, the executive summary really does a good job of explaining carbon fee and dividend legislation. I think this is a really good way and one of many ways that are needed to help combat the climate crisis and help protect a lot of the valuable assets that Rock County has. We have some of the best farmland in the state, and I would hope that the Rock County Board would be able to act on helping to protect that. And like I said, this is just one of many ways. This is a top-down level, but there's also ways that are going to be needed from the local level up too. But there's a couple things I just wanted to add to this is that if Rock County passed this resolution tonight, we would be joining Sawyer, La Crosse, Dane, Ashland, Bayfield, and Eau Claire counties, as well as the cities of Bayfield, Washburn, Wausau, Rice Lake, Wapaka, Ashland, La Crosse, Stevens Point, Eau Claire, and Middleton. The particular legislation, there's one particular legislation that's in Congress right now, HR 763. That legislation has an exemption for military and agricultural fuels and non-emissive uses to help protect the farmers and our military. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And I do believe we still have Ms. Grogan available as well. If any supervisors have any questions regarding the resolution. So at this time, I see Supervisor Fox has his hand raised, so we'll start there. Supervisor Fox, you're on mute.
sorry about that. Clearly, the Earth, the climate of the planet Earth has been changing for years. We've gone through multiple climatic cycles, multiple ice ages, and it just keeps happening. And I don't think that there's anything that we as a human race are probably going to be able to do unless we all decide to do something. And that means every person in every nation across the globe. The United States is not going to be able to do it itself. A couple of things I'd like to point out regarding the resolution. And I'm not a climate denier. I will agree that the climate is changing. And we are experiencing strange climatic activities that we haven't been used to maybe in our lifetimes, but probably not unusual in the life of our planet. The Yale study in 2019, the Yale Climate Opinion Poll estimated that 70% of Rock County residents said that companies should support a carbon tax, and 75% believe that the CO2 should be regulated. There's a few problems with that. The study surveyed 24,000 people in the United States and then used statistical modeling to estimate the public opinion in every county of the country. Therefore, it's possible and likely that not one Rock County resident was ever surveyed on this issue. Now, clearly, we have people call in tonight voicing their opinion in favor of this, so there's clearly support for it, but it's also possible that nobody was ever polled in that study. Why I don't think that a carbon tax is the right method to try to accomplish this. The U.S. is not the world's largest polluter. So if the U.S. acted alone in passing a carbon tax, it would both damage the economy severely and fail in its goal to reduce global carbon emissions the necessary amount. There's other countries in the world that are far greater offenders than we are, and that have zero interest in trying to reduce their amount of their carbon footprint. Since any carbon tax would need to be global, it's hardly feasible to get China, Russia, India, Brazil, etc., to all agree to a tax. Such negotiations would be nearly impossible. Even if it was accomplished, it would also be nearly impossible to enforce a tax on every single power plant or company that burns fuel across the nation or across the planet. Setting that price for a carbon tax is far too complicated. Global warming is only one factor among many. Consider the following factors. Fossil fuels are relatively cheap, so they provide great benefit. The US military spends billions protecting fossil fuel supply chains. We also have a car-based economy to which most are adjusted. The roads in which these cars drive are also subsidized. The bottom line is there are so many external costs and benefits to fossil fuels, and the cost of global warming is just one of them. So how does one rationally estimate a tax on carbon? Plus, those that are at the lower level of income earners or small businesses are the ones that will pay the highest price and will be the hardest, be impacted the worst and have the hardest time dealing with it. Instead of a resolution supporting a carbon tax that would penalize American business and consumers, why don't we try to come up with a resolution that encourages innovation and becoming more efficient and develop newer, better, sustainable technologies that weans us off of fossil fuels over time? Taxing us is not the way to accomplish this. I yield back. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Fox. Any other supervisors wishing to comment or ask any questions?
Supervisor Gustina?
Go ahead, Supervisor Gustina.
Yes, I'm not going to waste a lot of time. Brent summed it up pretty good with all the stuff going on, but people would look back at history and check into weather for the last recorded time when they started. Everything goes in cycles, and we as humans have only been on this planet a very, very short time. And with the couple of 2 or 3 ice ages that's come and gone, man did not cause that. And if I recall, when Mount St. Helens blew up, they said that put more carbon and pollution in the ecosystem than all of mankind for umpteen years, hundreds of years. So when there's natural disasters, we cannot control that. That's part of nature, and we have to live here as humans with it. I would also like to add that if Joe Gastardi is the weather person that I would wish people would look at, he's done a lot of studying on this and shows the weather climates goes in cycles. I personally have been to China, and it was a number of years ago, probably 13 years ago now, I've been over there. And those people, almost all the people that I seen were wearing masks, and it wasn't because of the coronavirus. It was because China basically puts a coal-fired electrical plant online 1 a week. And that's one of the worst pollution energy products in the world. We all know that. But when you have nations such as China, India, Russia, and some of the others that are major polluters in the world, and they don't require, they just laugh at us for what we're doing. And we're one of the leading countries in the world for cleaning up the environment and the ecosystem. So I totally agree with Supervisor Fox. It would do a lot more harm than good on our economy and everything else. But we can work towards something better over time. I yield back. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Gustina. Other supervisors who haven't had a chance to speak yet? Wishing to, yes, Supervisor Renish.
Yes, I disagree with a lot of what has just been said. I'd love it if we could talk about this more in depth. However, looking for solutions that will force or push people to innovate, that's what this is. That's what this is doing. Obviously, looking for solutions to innovate and come up with all these other ways of doing business isn't working. So now we have to force people to pay in order to force them to look into innovating, because obviously they're not doing it on their own. Thank you. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Supervisor Renish. Other supervisors wishing to speak?
Supervisor Davis.
Yes, go ahead, Supervisor Davis.
I believe I saw in a memo from Supervisor Lokrantz that the Yale study listed numerous corporations, the American Farm Bureau, the Farmers Union, all sorts of industrial outfits who support this resolution. So I was curious if Supervisor Lokrantz could explain a little bit about that and who some of the supporters are. One of them being McDonald's Corporation and several others who have a worldwide impact.
Madam Chair, if I could respond.
Yes, go ahead, Supervisor Lokrantz.
Thank you. I think Supervisor Davis did a good job of listing off some of those that are major supporters. One thing that this carbon fee.
Excuse me, can he speak a little more into his mic? Hard to
Yep.
hear him.
Sorry about that. Is this a little bit better?
Not much.
All right. All right. How's that? Okay. I'm about as close as I can get to the screen without it being unworkable. So let me hop back on my train of thought here. But the carbon fee and dividend legislation, this legislation, it's a fee on the source of the pollution. So it's not. I've heard a couple things said about like small businesses and everything. This is a resolution that is in favor of putting a fee on when the material is extracted from the earth. So, and then it was also going to be reallocating funds from the fees back to the American people. So I hope I did a good job of explaining that.
Supervisor Davis, does that answer your question?
Yes, but there were a number of groups who supported the legislation on this too. So, and they were businesses and large agricultural communities like the Corn Growers Association. So there is a lot of support out there for this.
Thank you, Supervisor Davis. Supervisor Agutter, I believe I saw your hand raised.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
I just wanted to reiterate that this is a fee at source, and it's getting people to pay for the pollution. That other countries that have done this have really found that it levels the playing field. It's made a big difference in home energy, especially electricity production, because companies that were sourcing from fossil fuels have invested more in alternatives over the years now. Some countries that have implemented a fee have implemented a very high fee, and compared to what's going through our legislature right now. So it's hard to compare. You might be, yeah, I'm not really sure, but they are basing the fee on scientific knowledge of basically the cost to us of that pollution. And that dividend payment is really important because the legislation that we're supporting gives most of that, or all of it in some cases, back to people, which is going to offset any increased costs. Because yes, this will increase some costs for fossil fuel based things and gasoline for your car, but that's going to go equally to people. So it's actually going to benefit people at the bottom of the income scale, because they'll be getting just as much as someone who really probably doesn't need the money, and they're going to be able to use that to offset any increased costs. And if I know Ms. Grogan has some information about that too, if anybody wanted to have a more in-depth explanation from what the economists are saying. Thank you.
Supervisor.
Yes, Supervisor Sweeney, and I do see a couple of other hands raised as well. I want to make sure I'm getting to everybody in order. So I'm going to start with Supervisor Rashkin, and then I'll go to Supervisor Sweeney. And just a reminder, those of you who are waiting to speak who've already spoken, I'm going to go to all of the supervisors who haven't had a chance to speak first before I start going back around and allowing people a second time to speak. So we'll start with Supervisor Rashkin here, and then after that I will go to Supervisor Sweeney.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, I want to say thank you to everybody who wrote in and called in on this. It's really nice to have people involved with local government and step in and step up and let us know how you feel. It's really important. I think that is an important part of what we're looking at tonight, which is a resolution that in its nature is aspirational. It's something that is supposed to inspire us to do better. We're looking at, as we pointed out, perhaps sometimes we have to get things done, not just with carrots, but sometimes with a little bit of a stick. And that's fair, because we have certain tools to accomplish certain goals. And as local government, we have this opportunity to do. I think that it's also important to acknowledge that we have responsibility for climate change. We can't just blame everything on sunspots or cycles or ice ages. I mean, I have some experience in this, having translated a book by a Russian astronomer on this topic a number of years ago for a think tank that in the end decided they couldn't publish it because it didn't make sense. So I think that we have to acknowledge the fact that after 9/11, when we had several days when there were no planes flying and the temperatures around airports changed. There's a number of examples already because of COVID-19 that we've already had impact on the environment because of decline in economic activity that we're experiencing. We just need to accept responsibility for that and move on. And I think that's really pretty straightforward there. And also we need to lead by example. We need to show leadership. And this is what Rock County can do. This is what United States can do. We don't have to, I mean, since when are we letting Russia and China set environmental standards? I mean, if they can't do it, we can't do it. What is this? I think that we need to lead by example, and we need to show to the rest of the world, the rest of the country, the rest of the state, that Rock County stands firm in its commitment to improving our environment. I think that's a pretty straightforward situation, and I look forward to supporting this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Ashkin. Supervisor Sweeney.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This
a regressive tax, but most of all, it affects your lower and moderate income constituents. It's a tax on virtually everything we do. It means people paying more for everything they do, everything they eat, wear, or use. Reducing carbon dioxide to a taxable good means the subjection of nearly every facet of your last breath. One of the, something else to understand about the real effects of a carbon tax is the tremendous aid it would give to those seeking to crush competition, like your big companies that were just mentioned, and gain an unfair advantage in the marketplace. Big corporations, big industries can bear those costs of accounting, compliance.
Oh, I believe we may have lost Supervisor Sweeney, unfortunately. It just looks like he dropped off.
If he hops back, Madam Chair,
Yes,
if he hops back on, can we, I didn't hear a word he said.
yes, we'll see if he can get reconnected, if we can get a better connection and have him, I'll have him kind of state his prior statements there. In the meantime, while we are waiting for that, I do see Supervisor Taylor has his hand raised and we have not heard from him yet. So I will turn the floor over to Supervisor Taylor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to echo what already been said. The economic consequences of not acting on climate change are going to be worse than the economic consequences of this carbon tax. Thank you.
I'm sorry, Supervisor Taylor, could you repeat that for us? You were kind of going in and out there. We were having a hard time hearing you.
Me and Supervisor Sweeney both. Am I any better now?
A little bit
Nope,
better.
doesn't seem like it. All right, maybe come back to me after a little while, see if I've improved.
All right, I can do that. So any other supervisor who has not had a chance to speak yet that wishes to speak or ask any questions? Just a reminder, we do have Ms. Grogan here who is willing to answer some questions for supervisors. And Ms. Grogan, I do see your hand raised. So if there were some questions I may have missed on earlier supervisors, I'll give you an opportunity here to respond to those.
Point of order.
Yes, Supervisor Fox.
When does a guest get to speak during a debate?
In this case, this is a guest that is an expert in the area. And so therefore I've allowed this guest to be here. It's similar to, for example, when we had Mr. Cullen come in and speak on the redistricting maps issue. As long as they're just answering questions and not engaging in the political debate, it is allowable. So as long as Ms. Grogan has information to share with us regarding the resolution, that should be allowable.
Didn't she already have that opportunity?
Yes, in the public comment section, she did have that opportunity. This would be in regards to any questions that supervisors had specifically regarding the resolution that was not part of the public comment section. So this would be like just any regular questions that supervisors may have had or raised. I'm not sure I heard any questions yet, but I was just seeing that her hand was raised, so it was possible if I asked her here to answer any questions. It's possible she may have heard a question that I did not hear.
Could we have Rich Greenlee weigh in on this?
Yes, of course.
So ultimately, the chair has control of the debate, and just as we invite staff in to give information to the board, sometimes it's valuable for third parties to provide information to the board to inform the debate. Ultimately, the board has control over its own rules. So the chair is in charge of making those rulings about who is in order and out of order, but the board can vote to overrule the chair. So if someone believes on the board that it is not appropriate to allow a third party to offer information, that certainly can be made in a motion, and then there would need to be a vote on the ruling. But that would be an appeal to the chair's ruling, which currently is that it is in order to allow a third party to offer information during a debate.
Okay, I do see another hand raised here of someone who hasn't had an opportunity to speak yet. So I'm gonna just go ahead and allow that supervisor the opportunity to speak, and that would be Supervisor Richard.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There seems to be a few issues brought up that are questioning the foundations of the resolution based on the facts and the science behind it. Maybe unknown, maybe not enough sources offered. So at this time, I move to table the resolution until they can be more founded. Thank you.
I'll second that.
And you're making a motion to postpone the resolution. Is that to a date certain, or?
Yes, a date in 1 month from now. Thank you.
Okay, so there is a motion to postpone the resolution to a month from now. The next meeting, I would assume that would be the August 13th meeting. And there's been a second as well. Since there's a motion to postpone and a second, there will now be discussion regarding the motion to postpone this particular resolution.
Okay, call for the question.
I have a question. How's that work?
Okay, so
Supervisor Pasilny has called for the previous question. That previous question is in regards to the motion to table. There needs to be a second to that call to the previous question in order for it to be on the floor. If it does not achieve a second, then we would move on with debate as to the motion to postpone.
Supervisor Gustina seconds that.
Okay,
so that is not debatable. So there needs to be a 2/3 vote in order to call the question on the motion to postpone. And so the clerk should call the roll at this time.
What does it mean to call the question?
That means forcing a vote and ending debate. So by calling the previous question, which is the parliamentary terminology, it's a parliamentary motion to close debate and immediately take the vote on whatever the previous question was. So in this case, the question on the floor was whether to postpone consideration of the resolution on climate change for 1 month. And so if the motion to call the previous question is successful, we will no longer have a debate on that motion. And we would just call the vote on the motion to postpone.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Potter? Levy?
Aye.
Zajac?
No.
Pier,
Yes.
Podzilmi,
Yes.
Lowkrantz,
No.
Schultz,
She said no.
No.
Brenish,
No.
Williams,
No.
Yeomans, Sweeney, Holman,
Yes.
Castina,
Yes.
Rich Bostwick,
No.
Davis,
No.
Mawini,
Yes.
Mulligan,
Yes.
Knutson,
No.
Richard,
Yes.
Beaver,
Yes.
Rashkin,
No.
Fox,
Yes.
Taylor,
No.
that's a no, correct?
Yes, that's a no.
Wiley,
No.
Brian,
No.
Pam Bostwick,
No.
Agutter,
No.
Baumkamp, Purviance,
No.
ten yes, 16 no, 3 absent.
Okay, motion does not carry. So we will return to going back to the debate of whether or not to table the resolution at this time. So supervisors have questions or comments regarding tabling this particular resolution. Now would be the time, and I will go ahead and open the floor. I do see a couple of hands raised, so I'm going to start there. So Supervisor Rashkin.
That was from a long ago. I'm sorry.
That's
my hand-
okay. All right, Supervisor Zajac. Supervisor Zajac, we are not hearing you. I don't know if you're there.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Prior to all that, I wanted to re-ask Supervisor Richard to state the reason for postponement again, which facts he thought we can get better information on within a month.
Okay, Supervisor Richard, would you like to respond to Supervisor Zajac's question?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. There were, in the whereas, there are several assumptions made about temperatures and effects of flooding in Rock County. And just rainstorms, just very, very general, vague sort of weather issues that sound bad on the face of it, but without any sort of statistics behind it, it's really difficult to say whether or not they actually are increasing or whether or not it's decreasing. For example, I mean, 10 years ago, we heard that hurricanes should be worse because of climate change, but in effect, hurricanes have lessened. The number of hurricanes have lessened over the last 10 years and they have increased. The same with tornadoes and et cetera. So it seems to be an issue of really putting a lot of statistics and really getting into the whole climate change facts as they are occurring in the United States. It's very difficult. It's a huge question, which is why I think it needs more time to be fully explored. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Richard.
Thank you.
Supervisor Agutter.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think it seems like from the discussion that most of us do have some idea of what we're talking about, and we've formed opinions about it already. I don't know that a month's delay would change those opinions. Certainly, we've had our opportunities to familiarize ourselves with the Citizens Climate Lobby and the carbon fee and dividend legislation, I know I was kind of a hard sell on it at first, I will say, but I fully support it now. And I just don't know that 1 month is going to make a difference for people, because what I'm hearing is that I think we have different sources for our information in some cases.
Thank you, Supervisor Egger. Other supervisors, and just a reminder, we are talking about tabling at this time, or postponing, I'm sorry. All right.
Supervisor Davis has a question.
Go ahead, Supervisor Davis.
Is this resolution only advisory to our representatives in Congress?
That's correct. So the resolution is simply a statement of preference and policy. I don't believe it would have any fiscal or, active effect on county actions at this time.
And Congress people have a committee or a group of people who can study the issues more in detail?
That there's a whole class of political science probably on that very issue in and of itself. Yeah. Ostensibly, yes.
Thank you, Supervisor Davis. Any other supervisors with questions or statements? Supervisor Renish?
Is now or when would be the time to ask a clarifying question about the resolution? A question to Katie.
So right now we're just discussing tabling the item. So if it's a question specifically regarding the resolution, I think we would need to wait until we get back to that, if we do get back to that.
Thank you.
Any other supervisors? All right, hearing none, there's a motion and a second to postpone this item until the August 13th meeting. I think given the debate that we've had and kind of the back and forth on this item, I will ask for it to be roll call, please.
Podzolny,
Yes.
Camp, Egger,
No.
Renish,
No.
Lokrantz,
No.
Rich Bostwick,
No.
Williams,
No.
Holman,
No.
Potter, Knutson,
No.
No.
Richard,
Yes.
Raskin,
No.
Yeomans, Mawhinney,
Yes.
Pam Bostwick,
No.
Beaver,
No.
Scholes,
No.
Brian,
No.
Mulligan,
No.
Levy,
No.
Aldi,
No.
Justina,
Yes.
Pierre,
No.
Fox,
Yes.
Sweeney,
Yeah.
Taylor,
No.
Zajac,
Yes.
Davis,
No.
Purviance,
No.
seven yes, 19 no, 3 absent.
Lisa, just real quickly on that one, did you get a vote for Supervisor Potter? I see that he joined us a little bit late, and I believe he tried to voice in his vote around the same time as another supervisor was voting.
So Supervisor Potter,
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
what was your vote?
No. Thank you, Madam Chair. I apologize for my tardiness.
So 7 yes, 20 no, 2 absent. Thank you.
The motion to postpone does not pass, so we return to the original motion. And so at this time, I know that Supervisor Renish, you had a question that you wanted to ask. However, I do see one supervisor here who hasn't had a chance to speak yet, so I'm going to go to that supervisor first, and then I'll come back to you, okay? So Supervisor Beaver?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a question on the resolution. Is this the same resolution that all these other counties or cities passed word for word? And the other question is the fee. What's the fee? Is that something to be determined, and how is it going to be determined? And if we have a fee in this resolution, to me, it would seem that we need to attach some sort of an amount to it. Thank you.
Thank you. So Supervisor Lockrantz, do you feel comfortable answering that question, or Supervisor Eggeter, or would you like me to ask Ms. Grogan to answer those questions?
Madam Chair, the fee, that's a matter of policy a little more. That might be a Ms. Grogan question, but just on my thought about the word for word of the other counties, no, it is not. It would be very hard to make a resolution that's word for word of the other counties when each county has a different climate, different weather patterns, and is going to be differently affected by climate change.
Okay, so there's the answer to Supervisor Beaver's first question. And then for the second question, then Ms. Grogan, could you give us some more information on how the fee will be determined?
Yes, I'm happy to do that. First of all, I want to say that the resolution that you're looking at tonight is just asking Congress to do a general carbon fee and dividend. And in Congress right now, there's actually more than one that have been proposed, and the fees differ. And our organization backs a particular bill. And this ties into the second part of the question that I was just had about the counties and the wording on the resolution. A number of the counties that have been named and the cities that have been named actually went a step further and specifically endorsed the legislation that we're behind. We thought we would start with something more basic and more general in our efforts to talk to people in Rock County. So we're just looking for an endorsement of carbon fee and dividend, what's been recommended by all these economists. The details of that would be sorted out in Congress. And the question previously, I think Wes Davis asked a question that wasn't really fully answered. I think Wes' question was, wouldn't they work out some of the details? Isn't there something in Congress where they would deal with different aspects of a bill like this? In both the Senate and the House, there is something called the House Climate Solutions Caucus, and there's also the Senate Climate Solutions Caucus. And certainly various carbon fee and dividend bills would have to be, there'd be a lot of people both sides weighing in on the specifics of those bills. So as far as the fees, they differ. they differ according to the plan, and the fee would just be on carbon, or excuse me, fossil fuels at their source. That would only be the mine, the well, or the port of entry.
Thank you, Ms. Grogan. I do see Supervisor Sweeney is back on the line with us here, and I know Supervisor Sweeney, we lost you before in the middle of your comments. So I do want to give you an opportunity to restate your previous comments.
Well, I don't know how much of it you heard, so.
I would say let's start from the beginning, because I think we had difficulty from the beginning, so.
Okay, well, I won't start from the beginning, but something that needs to be understood about the real effects of a carbon tax is it would be used to crush the competition. It'd be used by those big companies that were spoke of earlier to gain an unfair advantage in the marketplace. Big corporations, big industries compare costs of accounting, compliance, and diminished sales imposed by a carbon tax, which then would be passed along to the consumers. The smaller competitors would be hit harder by costs and might not be able to withstand that. This tax will virtually affect everything that we touch, from the first breath to the last breath of our lives. The one thing about the carbon tax, when you monetize air or carbon tax, it becomes fair trade for the money hedgers connected to your Congress. That's the same group of people that has a less than a 10% approval rating. The idea that Rock County's taxpayers will get a sustainable and suitable compensation for an insatiable federal government for higher living costs caused by carbon tax is really far-fetched. This is the greatest transfer of wealth from low to moderate income constituents to the higher earners in Rock County's history. Right now, we protect farmland while not shipping dollars to Washington. We bring dollars back into Rock County from Washington to protect that farmland. And one thing about the resolution itself, lines 9 through 13, I brought this up at staff, that is completely false. So even the resolution is not accurate. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Sweeney. Supervisor Taylor, you were having some connection issues before as well, so I'm wondering if that's any better now and if you would like to speak at this time.
Let's see, do I sound any better yet?
Unfortunately, Supervisor Taylor, we're still having difficulty hearing you. I apologize.
Seems to be a very great delay.
Okay. Sorry about that. We're just having difficulty with.
Okay, just move on from me. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Any other supervisors who haven't had the opportunity to speak yet on this particular item? Supervisor Schultz?
Yes, I'd like to ask the question of this to Kay. If she could respond to it. I've heard several of our supervisors state that they felt it was going to disproportionately hurt the lower income people. And could you comment on that?
Yes, I would. May I speak?
Yes, go ahead, Ms. Groban.
Thank you. I would be happy to comment on that. Now, when the different fossil fuel companies are assessed a fee, that fee goes in a pot, and that pot represents the dividends that go back to people. Now, I can't speak for all the carbon fee and dividend plans. I'm most familiar with the one that our organization backs. We didn't want to come to the board and ask for an endorsement of a specific piece of legislation. But in actuality, 2 major studies are done of carbon fee and dividend legislation, in particular the bill we support. And both of them show that not only low income people, but moderate up through the about 65% of households will receive more in dividends than they would have paid out in increased cost for gasoline and heating fuel and all the rest. So the poorer and the lower income, middle income people actually will benefit from carbon fee and dividend legislation, especially of the type where the money was all returned to people as a dividend.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Madam
Ms.
Chair.
Corbin. Yes, Supervisor Sweeney.
Thank you. Since I get to debate with the public this evening, the implication was that the low to moderate income people would be 100% plus of those dollars back, which is basically a transfer or a sort of wealth transfer in the United States. That's a very dangerous road to travel, and there is no possible way that you send $2 trillion over 10 years to the U.S. Congress and you would get 100% of it back. It just does not happen. I yield.
Thank you, Supervisor Sweeney. I also see Supervisor Fox, you had your hand raised.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I have a question for Ms. Grogan. So where do these dividends come from? And then secondarily to that, I still have a point of order issue, but we'll let that be. But the issue is we've got somebody pro-tax here. Why aren't we allowed to have somebody that's against tax speak on behalf? Thank you.
I'm sorry, Supervisor Fox, could you just repeat your initial question?
My initial question was for Ms. Grogan, and that is about where does the dividend come from? And then I have a follow-up question after that. So.
Okay.
Okay. Well, the dividend comes from a fee on fossil fuels. The idea is to force the price of fossil fuels up to account for the pollution that fossil fuels put into our atmosphere. And so the idea behind a carbon fee and dividend is fossil fuel companies will be taxed at the source, and that's the money that goes into the pot. That makes up the dividends. So the dividends, when they're returned to the people, will vary over time. But as the cost of fossil fuels goes up, that should spur innovation and it should spur investment. And that's what our studies are showing, the modeling shows. That then would bring about more investment in renewable sources of energy, which are already cheaper than fossil fuels. An example would be here in the state of Wisconsin, we spend a great deal of money buying coal from outside of the state. It might be possible if with more investment in solar and wind that we wouldn't be doing that. So the amount that would come back to people varies over time as the price of fossil fuels goes up and up and up. People will be looking, oh boy, I don't want to spend this much. The reason the dividends go back to the people, and in our bill, they would go back on an equal basis, is because there are certain harder, more fixed costs that you can't turn around to that quickly, namely gasoline and heating oil.
So I'm kind of a simple person here. So you're going to charge everybody because it's going to be done at the source. So everybody's going to pay. Where's the money? Where does the money actually go so that it gets returned to the people that don't use carbon or fossil fuels? How does that happen? Help me understand the mechanism that you can tax everybody, every consumer that touches anything that's produced or transported or has anything to do with fossil fuels. Help me understand how somebody can get a dividend from that.
Well, the assessment of the fee would only be at the source. And I think they figured out for coal, for example, it's only about 500 entities in the country, about 140 oil refineries in the country. That's where the fee would be applied.
Yeah, but all the people that get energy from those coal-fired plants or from those oil fields are gonna have to pay. The energy companies are not gonna just absorb the cost. They're gonna pass
Point
it
of
on.
order. This isn't a debate. He asked a question and she answered.
Well, that money then would go to the government, and it would be administered by the Internal Revenue Service and the Treasury Department.
Well, that's a real trustworthy agency.
Well, it
Madam
would,
Chair, I move to call the question by unanimous
call the
consent.
vote.
I'll second. Zajac.
Okay, Rich, is that in order at this point?
No, it's not. So Supervisor Fox still has the floor. So he has not yielded his time back. So at this point, believe we need to wait for Supervisor Fox to finish, and then the next motion would be in order.
I would like Kay Grogan to continue.
well, as the money would come into the government, the modeling we had done shows that it would be distributed very similarly to how the COVID-19 CARES Act money was distributed. It would not be- there would not-
That was really well handled.
Okay, so I'm gonna have to say, like, if we're gonna go back and forth on this, we have to be respectful. So if you're asking a question, Supervisor Fox, and
I'll
Ms.
finish
Grogan
up.
is,
I got one point, and I'll finish, and I'll push back. If you guys fall for this, you should be on MTV Ridiculousness. And I apologize if you're offended by that, but this is a hoax, and I yield back.
okay, so I believe that there was now I'm not sure if we're okay with going ahead and going back to the motion that was made prior to Supervisor Fox yielding the floor. Is that acceptable?
So somebody needs to make it. So it certainly would be in order now, but somebody needs to make that motion.
Moved.
Yeah.
Okay, there's,
Unanimous consent.
so I'm sorry, what was the motion?
To call the question by unanimous consent.
So that's what I heard from Supervisor Wildy, was a motion to ask unanimous consent to call the previous question. But I was unclear on a second.
Professor Zajac, I believe. The second.
Is there a second to call the previous question by unanimous consent?
I'll second.
Thank you, Supervisor Zajac. We have a motion and a second to call the previous question by unanimous consent. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Are there any opposed?
No.
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 So the motion fails by unanimous consent. And so then if someone's interested in still asking for the previous question, we would need to take a roll call vote.
I call the question.
All right, so Supervisor Wildy is calling the question. Is there a second? There's a second by Supervisor Renish. There's a motion and a second to call the question. This is going to be roll call. Lisa?
Potter,
No.
Pier,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
Beaver,
No.
Lowcrantz,
Yes.
Mawiney,
No.
Baumkamp, Fox,
No.
Williams,
Yes.
Rashkin,
Yes.
Zajac,
Yes.
Podzolmi,
No.
Holman,
Yes.
Taylor,
Yes.
Wildy,
Yes.
Grenish,
Yes.
Sweeney, is Sweeney still on? Rich Bostwick,
Yes.
Yeomans, Levy,
Yes.
Knutson,
Yes.
Justina,
No.
Pam Bostwick,
Yes.
Mulligan,
Yes.
Eggeter,
Yes.
Richard,
No.
Schultz,
Yes.
Purviance.
Yes.
I wanted to verify Sweeney. Nineteen yes, 7 no, 3 absent.
Believe that is over the 2/3. Is that correct, Rich?
Yes.
All right, so the question has been called. Therefore, we have no more debate on this particular resolution. So at this time, we will go straight to voting for the resolution. Given the discussion and debate on the floor, I do call for a roll call vote on this particular item.
Lowkrantz,
Yes.
Grenish,
Sorry, yes.
Knutson,
Yes.
Mawhinney,
No.
Holman,
Yes.
Eggeter,
Yes.
Yeomans, Raskin,
Yes.
Taylor,
Yes.
Baumkamp, Pier,
No.
Wildy,
Yes.
Beaver,
Yes.
Podzilny,
No.
Schultz,
Yes.
Gustina,
No.
Potter,
No.
Bostwick, Rich,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Richard,
No.
Sweeney,
No.
Mulligan,
Yes.
Pam Bostwick,
Yes.
Levy,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
Fox,
What do you think? No.
Brian,
Yes.
Zajac,
Yes.
Purviance,
Yes.
Nineteen yes, 8 no, 2 absent.
Thank you. Motion passes. Next item, please.
Item 12D, waiver of Rock County Public Health License renewal fees for 2020.
Is there a motion?
Richard moves.
Moved by Supervisor Richard. Is there a second?
Mawhinney,
Podzilny
second.
seconds.
Okay, seconded by Podzilny. So we have a motion and a second. Supervisor Richard, will you give us an overview of your resolution, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a resolution to waive the license fees just for 1 year for the restaurants and other organizations that have been affected by COVID and give them a little bit of financial break. I do have a question. The committee that passed this already, the Finance Committee, they had three amendments to the resolution that were put in place. I'm not sure how to get those on into the current situation here.
That is a good question, Supervisor Richard. I do remember those amendments being made. Rich, what would be the process there with that?
So I'm sorry, what committee reviewed it?
It came in front of Finance Committee.
Okay.
And I believe it also went in front of Board of Health, but the amendments that Supervisor Richard is referring to came through Finance Committee.
Mr. Smith, I believe, has some information.
Just, I would ask Supervisor Richard, I know there were some amendments that were made. I'm wondering if they were actually incorporated into the version that's in front of you right now. I believe they were related to the general fund in lines 26 and some in the resolved clause. But clarification that they are or are not already incorporated. I thought the intent was to go ahead and incorporate those into the version that's in front of you right now that went through Finance, but I cannot attest that those are in there. So if potentially Supervisor Richard.
Madam Chair, this is Randy Toronis. So based upon the feedback from Finance Committee, so changes were made to line 2 that included 2 and 3 that included body art, I think pools and beaches. Changes were made to the line 26 as far as the source of funds was clarified. And there was a third item that I believe was regarding the year on line 23, so that it covered the period of July 2019 through July 2020, because that's the way the health department assesses their fees based upon that fiscal year. That's all.
Yes, and I am seeing those amendments in the version of the agenda that I have. So Supervisor Richard, if you're okay with that, it does seem that the supervisors were presented with the amended version that was approved by Finance.
So, Madam Chair, you saying supervisors do have the amended version or do not have the amended version?
Yes, sir. They should have the amended version. So the amendments that Randy just went through for us, those are included in the version that supervisors should have received in their agenda packets.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any questions at all for Supervisor Richard or for staff regarding this resolution?
Supervisor Davis has a question.
Yes, go ahead, Supervisor Davis.
I'm wondering, what is the effect on the general fund, this resolution?
Josh, did you have an answer for that?
I think Sherry is able to answer that first,
Okay.
at least.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I see her now. Yep.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Sorry, had to unmute myself there. So it'd be about $450,000 approximate loss in revenue, which would mean that revenue is not going into the general fund
Thank you.
over our 2 fiscal years in total.
Thanks, Sherry. Any other questions?
Supervisor Peer,
Yes, go ahead, Supervisor Peer.
thank you. That was the major concern that the Board of Health had when this came up, and that's why we wanted to have an extension of time to have more clarification as to where the funds were coming from this, because the Board of Health really felt, and the staff as well, that it would really have a hardship on the Board of Health to have the figure given $450,000 out of that. So they wanted some kind of a commitment that could actually come out of the general fund. So am I to understand correctly that that's what would happen?
Yep. So, so the revenue loss in 2020, it would come from the general fund because so far, COVID-related funding such as CARES, they do not fund loss of revenue. So the losses we would incur in 2020 would come from the general fund. The losses in the first 6 months of 2021 would, the board would have to decide how to fund that, whether it's transfer from the general fund or what, since we don't have the 2021 budget completed yet.
And if I could, how much money are we talking about in 2021 then?
I didn't split it up exactly by year, but, I would guess about half.
So are you saying in totality, there'd be 450 plus 225 for 2021, or is the whole thing 450?
The whole thing, 450.
Okay.
Just a reminder to supervisors, we've got some beeping that is coming through, so please make sure if you're not speaking that your mic is muted. Thank you. Any other questions at all for Sherry?
So could I continue with that? I mean,
Yes,
if that's
yes,
all
go
right.
ahead.
I just want to make sure it's clear, because it made it sound like, well, there's $450,000, but the general fund's going to take care of that. But now I'm not hearing that. I'm hearing that I think 250 would be taken care of out of the current budget, and then in 2022 there'd be an additional 200, and that decision would have to be made then.
Right. So since the 2020 budget is already set, if we do not bring in revenue that was budgeted for, it affects the fund balance because it will automatically, the shortfall will automatically come from the fund balance. But any loss of revenue in 2021, since we do not have that budget yet, it can come from the fund balance or, where the county board decides it would come from. Likely from the general fund balance, I would think. That's how the resolution is written.
Yes, Josh, I see you wanted to respond.
Yeah, just a point of clarification, and Sherry, maybe you can help the board understand. So because the fee year for the health department covers 2 budget years of the county. So in line 23, where it talks about fees for the fee year of July 2019 to July 2020, sort of backwards looking versus into 2021. Can you clarify how that affects when it's the prior year?
Yep, sorry about that. You're right. I'm in the 2021 budget mode already. So I wasn't looking back to 2019, but you're right. It's 19 to 20. So it all automatically comes from the general fund since the 2020 budget is already. Yes, thank you, Josh, for that. So since the 2020 budget is already set, we already have that revenue in the budget. Not collecting it is a dollar for dollar decrease in the general fund. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Sherry.
Any other questions from supervisors? Supervisor Wildy?
Sorry. This is a question for Supervisor Richards. With what Sherry just said, to start, I would say I support relief for any businesses that were affected by this. It looks as though this is waiving the fee for all businesses, not just those that have, say, demonstrated some sort of negative impact. Just in the interest of preserving any revenue that we could stand to lose here, did you explore, I guess, what was your rationale behind that? Did you explore options to qualify the waiver or anything like that?
Madam Chair, may I answer that?
Yes, go ahead, Supervisor Richard.
Thank you. Yes, Supervisor Wildy, that was brought up during the Board of Health meeting to look at the idea of qualifying and vetting businesses and they did not find that viable whatsoever. And looking at part of the resolution includes the idea, the point of going through the emergency loan, small business loan through the Department of Economics, and they're spending hours and hours and hours of vetting for these loans. So this wasn't doable for hundreds of restaurants in the area to do that. We think that most, if not, majority are suffering, being closed down. Of course, they're losing funds. So it didn't seem viable to try to weed out the small percentage that may not be struggling right now. Thanks.
Thank you, Supervisor Richard.
Thank you.
Any other questions from supervisors?
Madam
not-
Chair, if I could make a comment, please.
Just one moment, Supervisor Peer. I think we're good to do that. I just want to make sure is everybody, if there are any other supervisors who haven't had a chance to speak yet that would like to speak.
Supervisor Davis.
I believe Supervisor Davis, you've already
Okay.
asked. So, but
Sorry.
that's fine. I'll just come back to you in just a moment. Are there any other supervisors who haven't spoken yet? Okay, so go to Supervisor Peer and then Supervisor Davis after that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to clarify and make sure everyone understood that the Board of Health had no hesitancy in wanting to help these businesses. It was just that we didn't know where the money was going to come in at, because it is a pretty good chunk out of the revenue for the Board of Health. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Peer. Supervisor Davis.
I had a question for Rich Greenlee. I was curious if there might be any possibility of litigation occurring because of unequal treatment by different businesses.
No, I mean, with the best way to take the possibility of disparate impact, discrimination litigation out of things is to treat everyone in a way where there's no discretion. And that's what we would be doing here. There'd be no qualification for hardship. And so there'd be no ability to make decisions that may have a disparate impact on one protected class versus another. And so I don't foresee that as being any kind of problem.
Thank you.
Any other supervisors with questions? If not, we have a motion and a second for the resolution in front of you, the waiver of Rock County Public Health License renewal fees for 2020. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed with no?
Abstain.
I abstained also, Davis.
Okay,
Abstain, Fox.
thank you. All right, so I heard 2 abstentions, but I did not hear any no votes, so the resolution passes. Next item, please.
Next item is item 13, adjournment.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
Lowcrantz will move.
Okay,
Second by Pam Bostwick.
moved by Supervisor Lowcrantz, seconded by Supervisor Pam Bostwick. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed with no? All right, we stand adjourned. Thank you all. Have a great night.
Good night.